got a bad feeling about this.
Who's the more foolish, the fool or the fool who follows it?
Why, you stuck-up, half-witted, scruffy-looking nerve herder.
What is thy bidding, my master?
Anakin Skywalker, meet Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Don't do that.
When 900 years old you reach, look as good you will not.
Laugh it up, fuzzball.
WW Radio, your information station.
This week, in honor of May the 4th, we're heading to a galaxy far, far away and diving into a fun, nerdy, and personal conversation as we build our ultimate Star Wars Movie Memorabilia Museum. Hello there, and welcome to WW Radio, your home and guide to Disney parks and experiences around the world. I am Lou Mangello, and this is show number 827, and for more than 20 years, we've been sharing our love of Disney and Marvel and Star Wars together here on the podcast, my weekly live video every Wednesday night, group events, blog, newsletter, and more. Whether you've been here since the beginning or this is your first time tuning in, welcome and thank you. You are part of this incredible Disney family and community, and everything you need is over at www.radio.com. And this week, we're not talking about toys or merchandise you can buy in the parks. We're talking about the actual props, costumes, and iconic items from the films that we wish we could own. From hero items to some surprising deep cuts, we're going to share the items that mean the most to us, that we want in our collection, and why. And this week's show is all about fandom, family, nostalgia, and of course, Star Wars. And of course, I want to hear from you. What is the one piece of Star Wars movie memorabilia that you want to put in your personal collection? You can share your answer with me and be part of the community and conversation over in the Clubhouse at www.radio.com/clubhouse. Be sure to stay tuned for our Disney Trivia Question of the Week for your chance to win a Disney prize package. And to make sure you never miss an update and stay connected, please sign up for my free weekly email newsletter over at www.radio.com, where you get not just the latest news, exclusive content, but when you sign up, you get a free copy of my book, 102 Things to Do at Least Once in Walt Disney World. And if you're looking for a keynote speaker, coach, course, or conference, please visit loumangello.com to see how I can help you take your ideas and business to the next level and how we can work together. You can also find out more about my Momentum Weekend Workshop this October in Walt Disney World and how to take advantage of the lowest possible pricing. Let's connect over on social. I am at Lou Mangello, and if you like what you hear, please share the show and tell a friend. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this week's episode of the WW Radio Show. Hello, what have we here? Today, my friend, is May the 4th, and you know what that means. Then again, maybe you don't. May the 4th be with you is a pun on the Star Wars phrase, may the Force be with you, and Star Wars fans from around the world use May the 4th to celebrate the Star Wars franchise, often with costume parties and screenings and events, or maybe, like us, just putting on the original trilogy in the background on a Sunday morning and just letting it go. And for Disney fans, it's also a day of celebration in the parks with events and special food and fun and all around revelry in Galaxy's Edge. And for me, Star Wars has never been just a movie. It's been part of my life since I was a little kid. I've told the story a million times, but watching A New Hope for the very first time with my dad in Middlesex Mall Cinema, collecting action figures, not props yet because we didn't know what the props actually were, trading cards and play sets, and yes, recreating entire scenes in the basement with my little brother. And we weren't just playing, like we were living Star Wars. We were creating our own adventures. We were telling our own stories and really building a bond, not just with each other, but with the franchise that would last throughout our lives. And I hope we'll find out soon enough. It's something that I've passed on to my son as well, because Star Wars has always been a family affair for me. It's something that I think bridges generations and it brings us together. It sounds like the Force. It binds us. And I think it also lets us dream big, which is why I think this episode, for me, is extra special, because we're celebrating Star Wars, not just as fans, but as collectors and dreamers, and more importantly, kids at heart. And after more than 20 years of podcasting, I finally negotiated with my brother to join me for the very first one. This is the episode he was born to do, and not only that, my son, I'm getting choked up. My son is going to be joining us too. And so what started with me and my dad now continues on to 3 generations, 1 galaxy, and hopefully 1 unforgettable episode where you can participate in as well. I want to first, for the very first time, welcome my brother Fred to the WDW Radio Show.
This is a day that will long be remembered.
And this will probably not be the last really bad reference to Star Wars quotes. And back once again is my son Nicholas.
Misa's so excited to be here.
You see, now that's how I'm going to mute your mic. We are going to have a Jar Jar meter, and every time somebody uses a Jar Jar quote, or if you try and do that voice again, I'm going to ring the bell. But
I'll see myself out. Thank you so much.
So this week, we and you are going to build our ultimate Star Wars collection. And I want you to think of it as your own Star Wars movie memorabilia museum. And together, we'll choose, I don't want to even say 10, it's probably going to be more than 10, props and costumes and items from the Star Wars movies, and we can throw in Disney Plus too, just for fun, that we wish we could actually own and display in our homes. This is what you want in your collection, in your home. So think about it personally and think logically too. Like I can't say, I want a full-size TIE fighter in my backyard, which I would like. Fred, we almost had a monorail in our backyard. We talked about this before, but whether it's a lightsaber or a holocron, a helmet to the hyperspace lever, these are the treasures we would give anything to have in our own personal vault. So if you're listening at home or in your car, grab your lightsaber and some Wookiee cookies and join us for a very personal, very nerdy, and I think very fun May the 4th celebration. But I want to start off with a couple of questions for you first. This is where you both look very nervous because you don't expect me to lead off with the question. Here's a trivia question. Do you know when and in what context May the 4th was originally used?
I do not.
Star Wars weekends?
No. So it was so going back to the movies, it was used a little bit around July 4th, going back to like 1978. But the first reported official use of the phrase came in May 1979 when Margaret Thatcher became the UK's prime minister, and the party paid for a newspaper ad saying, "May the 4th be with you, Maggie. Congratulations." And that comes right from Steve Sansweet. As you know, he runs Rancho Obi-Wan, which is he is the world's largest collector of Star Wars memorabilia. Okay, on to the relatively serious-ish questions. And Fred, I'm going to start with you because you've never done this before, so I'll be gentle. Who is your favorite Star Wars character, and why is it Jar Jar? No, who is your favorite Star Wars character, and why?
Well, this is going to get into one of my props that we'll discuss later, but my favorite Star Wars character is Yoda. He has always resonated with me as someone who has been described as a little short for a stormtrooper. His lines about size matters not and judge me by your size have always been very meaningful to me.
Nice. I dig it. Nicholas, what about you?
Okay, mine is a little bit less serious, but my personal favorite, I believe, is Darth Maul, because when I was a kid, I just loved the double-sided lightsaber, and that resonated with. But as I started to watch more Star Wars shows and movies, and I was able to understand the character further, not necessarily after he got chopped in half, but more in the shows. But that's where I kind of grew to love his story and appreciate that character. So
I do remember there have been, and if you who are listening have children of your own, you know that kids go through these cycles where they go sort of all in on one thing for a while. There were many cycles of that for you, Nicholas. Skylanders, I'm looking at you. But there was also sort of, and I think it still continues, sort of the lightsaber phase. And it started with, the ones that we would buy at Toys R Us. We obviously graduated to things that would be sort of the Force Effect sabers, one of our best experiences that we ever had together was building that lightsaber with you in Savi's. I hope you feel the same way. Building the lightsaber in Savi's workshop.
It was fine.
Well, it was very emotional for me. So for me, it's Obi-Wan Kenobi, and it is the Alec Guinness portrayal of the wise, level-headed, very philosophical character, and I think that's part of what I love about him. He's very thoughtful. He's very calm. He believes in the code of the Jedi and the balance of the Force. And I think when you see the way he interacts with, some people, he tries to offer more guidance than he does command. I think he's one of the most skilled with a lightsaber and the Force, but he thinks before he acts. He chooses negotiation over conflict. And I think his commitment to and his belief in the Jedi Order and his ideals sometimes comes at his own personal expense. And he doesn't give up on those he cares about. Anakin, I have the hype. Anakin, I'm trying to hook you up, man. It's not going to end well for you. And he sacrifices himself. He remains hidden for decades to protect Luke. And I think he carries a lot of the emotional weight of Anakin's fall and the Jedi's destruction. And I think he lives with this quiet sense of guilt and humility, and then is able to sort of move forward. But I like the relationship he has as both mentor and father figure to, Luke, and almost sort of a brother and kind of a reluctant father to Anakin. I think I also like his sense of humor, like a sort of dry wit. He brings in a little bit of levity even in the dark moments. So Obi-Wan, specifically Alec Guinness, is my guy. You both have collections of Star Wars memorabilia in your homes. Fred, I've been to your house many times. Your Star Wars collection goes far and wide and deep and very varied. What is your current favorite Star Wars collectible and why? Fred first.
I have to go with the life-size Han Solo and Carbonite, which is in my Star Wars bathroom. that also has Star Wars shower curtains. Our dad had actually bought that back in, I think, the 90s, and it was in storage for a long time, and I did finally get it shipped down here, and I could think of no greater place of honor for it to be than in my Star Wars bathroom.
The best place to have him is to watch you pee every single day.
So and Fred, I was trying to think. Our father never took it out of the box, right? He never got it out of the box. Yeah. So our dad passed a number of years ago and never was able to see, the actual Han Solo and Carbonite. And I mean, look, I knew this is what you were going to say, because that is not just a decoration. Like, it's a statement. I mean, it would make a statement in your foyer. It makes a bigger statement in your, like, you walk into your bathroom and you're sort of hit with this giant, and it is life size.
Yep. About 7 feet tall.
Yeah, it is absolutely huge. So, Nicholas, what about for you?
Kind of on one of the topics that you said was the lightsaber that we built together in Disneyland, not necessarily for the lightsaber itself, but more the experience that it created.
Yeah. Yeah, it's, if you've never done Savi's workshop, whether it's for yourself, whether it's for a relative or a friend, like, especially as a parent, it was just so great to watch you have that experience. And without spoiling anything, right, that reveal moment, right, that reveal moment at the end, I was like, this right here is worth. And the thing that I thought too was, like, my dad would love this. Like my father would have loved that experience.
Actually, I changed my mind. It's the life-size Jar Jar Binks we have in our bathroom, actually.
Surprisingly, nobody goes into that bathroom. Really. I tried to think of this one, and I bounced around very quickly, but I sort of very quickly went to, like, I still have, we still have the original 12 action figures. We were very fortunate kids growing up. My parents were very, very generous to us, and normally, if they bought something for one of us, they bought something for the other of us. So we played with my brother's action figures, and I just kept mine in the drawers under my bed. I still have, and thank you, Fred. You gave these back to me a few years ago. I still have all the original trading cards, and I remember sitting in our den, like, laying all the trading cards out, collecting them, and you flip them over, and they made sort of like a puzzle image But for me, I don't know if you can see it on my desk, I still have my 1977 Star Wars Han Solo blaster electronic toy, which has all the stickers on it. We always took very good care of our toys, except for the one thing, Fred. We'll get to that story a little bit later. So to have that thing that I played with and we played with as a kid, because we ran around the house like pretending we were living Star Wars. It's very meaningful to me for a number of reasons, and I love the fact that it's from that first movie that I fell in love with so much. So, all right, now we'll go sort of just back and forth. We'll do Fred first, Nicholas and me, and sort of go around the horn and come up with 3 to 5, whatever the number is going to be, props from the movies and even Disney Plus shows, because I think they count too, that you wish you could have in your collection. Look, and growing up, Fred, when we were kids, again, we collected the toys from the movies as we were kids. Even as I became somewhat of an adult, I remember being in our office as the little tiny video trailers for Phantom Menace came out, huddled around my computer, watching them over and over again. Like, I stood online at Toys R Us at midnight and I bought everything from Phantom Menace. I was like, I'm going to get ahead of the game. I'm thinking about my kids' college tuition. I bought toys. I bought store displays, unique items, the stupid Pepsi soda cans. I ate a lot of Taco Bell to get those dumb sippers and toys. But the things in our collection, and that's why I called it sort of the Star Wars Memorabilia Museum, are from the actual movie itself. So with that relative broad instruction, Fred, I invite you to go first in any particular order that you want it to be.
Well, first, let me take you back that you've spoken about seeing Star Wars 1977 with our father. I was only 2 years old at the time. One of my first memories is May of 1980. I'm 5 years old, and we go see The Empire Strikes Back. And I can still very distinctly remember this, that after the movie, we went to Ponderosa. And I was talking with you about, spoiler alert, Darth Vader could not be Luke's dad. Darth Vader's a robot. Robots can't have children. But my first prop, as I mentioned, Yoda is not only my favorite Star Wars character, he is my favorite fictional character. So my first prop is Yoda's cane or walking stick, because it symbolizes how someone on first appearance can look weak and helpless, but he is actually the strongest, most powerful character that you encounter in that movie. Again, his philosophy, the way he speaks about the Force specifically, has always resonated with me, and that's why I would want Yoda's cane.
I like that. When you said Yoda, I got nervous that you were going to say something that is on my list. Any Yoda? Is there any Yoda on yours, Nicholas, that would sort of like dovetail into this?
Not necessarily any Yoda, in all honesty. I have other things, but if you have something Yoda, then
I'll throw it on here just for fun, to sort of keep the Yoda-isms together. And I thought this is where you were going to go, Fred. This was farther down my list, but I do love this character as well, too. I think there's a lot of the things that I admire about Obi-Wan in Yoda. And, I think in when audiences first met him in 1980, and we heard about Yoda, and we sort of expected this mighty Jedi warrior, not this tiny little wrinkled old creature living in a swamp, but very quickly he transformed into one of the most wisest and beloved figures in the saga, delivering timeless lessons, some amazing quotes. With what I love about him is that quiet power and a little bit of unexpected humor. So for me, I thought about, like, is it the cane? Is it the little light that he takes from Luke? No, I was like, wait a minute, dream big, Mongello. I want the actual puppet. I want the actual, why not? I want the Yoda. I mean, if Frank Oz wants to come along, he can too. But I think the puppet itself was genius, and the way it was designed. And, I was doing some research and remembered this too, how they looked to, like they got inspiration from Albert Einstein, from the eyes and the wrinkles to craft that very sort of wise, aged expression. And I think it really was a breakthrough in character puppetry. There was no wires, there was no CGI, there were no shortcuts. Every little twitch and tilt and nuance was manually controlled, which I think gave uncanny realism. And I think some of the scenes with Luke in the swamp are some of the most emotionally resonant moments in the trilogy that were delivered by foam and fabric. And the fact that they were able to make this puppet emote using technology that was only available in 1980 was amazing. But again, just the character himself, like you, Fred, I think he's got a lot of those same qualities that I love and I appreciate. You'll probably hear me more than once talk about this. There is that sort of, it's almost like the Zen Buddhist like way about him with his teachings on patience and presence and detachment and that minimalist lifestyle that they all sort of lead. And the way that he instructs Luke is a lot of the ways that Obi-Wan instructs, the people under him. It's not through combat, but it's this stillness. And it gives me this, I sort of get the feeling with the two of them, and sometimes not by their own choice or doing, it's this mentorship style of like a sensei or a Ronin that you would see in classic Japanese cinema. So I think the legacy of Yoda absolutely warrants him having a presence in my museum. And I think a screen used Yoda puppet is probably one of the most sought after and rarest. I don't even know how many they might have had, especially for that first film. Probably one of the rarest artifacts in existence. I'm sure they're locked away in, the Lucas Museum somewhere. And if it ever went up for auction, I can only imagine what it would go for.
They're probably all sitting in a warehouse right now. You'll never get the chance, unfortunately.
But
and even if you did, it'd be probably a few million.
We are allowed to dream here, and that's what it is all about. So
just to tag in real quick, well, you were talking about that how he speaks in a Zen-like manner. It was a recent interview with Lucas that he spoke about the reason why Yoda has that backward speech pattern is because specifically for kids, he wanted them to be able to focus on every word Yoda was saying. And by the way his speech pattern, he thought would draw kids' attention more to listening to the words he was saying and not just let it wash over them.
Yeah, that alone is not just unique, but I think it represents not just sort of the myth but it's that advancement in storytelling technique just by the way they changed his cadence and his vocabulary. So yeah, Yoda very much present in both of our museums. All right, Nicholas, what is first on your list?
Not necessarily first, but it kind of builds off of the Yoda and just talking about Dagobah. The scene where Luke enters that cave and he sees this apparition of Darth Vader and he fights him and he decapitates him. I think one of the more unique ways to acquire a Darth Vader piece of memorabilia is the decapitated head of Darth Vader with Luke's head in it, just because of the significance of that moment and just it's a more unique approach to the Darth Vader memorabilia.
That's I remember, Fred, going back to seeing it for the first time. There were a lot of moments watching these movies that I remember, and I remember being so confused by that as a kid. I was 12 years old, so you can do the math, whatever. So confused as to what this represented and having discussions with you and our dad about what does this mean? Does it mean that he's really his son? Does it mean something different? Because it was so, not a word was spoken at all during that scene. And it was sort of left up to us to try and interpret what it meant.
Yeah, I remember having those same questions. I think the first time I saw it, I didn't even really get that it was supposed to be Luke's face. That I thought we were seeing Darth Vader's face. I didn't understand it at the time.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll go out of order because I want to sort of keep some of the similar things together. I also have Darth Vader's helmet very high on my list. It's actually number 3 on my list. I might have actually put this at number 2, but specifically, I want the helmet. I want the episode 4, A New Hope, the first, the original, the one that introduced an entire generation to arguably the most terrifying villain in history who never had to raise his voice once. Like Darth Vader doesn't yell, but that sculpt, that gloss, that breathing was just perfect. And you do remember that first moment that he steps onto the ship and you see him sort of come out of the shadows and sort of remain a shadow. And again, going back to my love of all things Japan, I love that the Japanese influence on the Darth Vader helmet. Lucas and Ralph McQuarrie, who did a lot of the original sketch and design work, looked to feudal Japan for Vader's silhouette, and that the kabuto, that traditional samurai helmet, which is often worn with a mask that covers the face, very much influenced that. And that flare dome and the neck guard and the face mask really sort of mimics the form and the function of samurai armor. And I think you see that, and it's not just mysterious, but there's a sense of like discipline and menace that you see that. And look, I'll talk about this more, but George Lucas took a lot of inspiration from Japan, and specifically things like the Akira Kurosawa films, and just how much that influenced a lot, especially in the original Star Wars. And Vader, I think in many ways, is sort of like that fallen samurai who's now just blindly consumed by duty and honor, just warped by the dark side. We've just been watching the movies the last, day or so, and I've been looking at it with watching his decline and his fall and the influence that the Emperor had on him. And I think this isn't just a mask, right? It's form sort of meets function, because it's not just armor. It is this curse of a life support system that he has to wear. That is, as he said, he's become more machine than man. And that breathing, that like terrifying breathing that every person on the planet knows what it sounds like, is this terrifying, inhuman element. And I think it is this perfect sense of minimalism with maximum impact. And I think for collectors, it's not just about having a piece of film history or a villain's mask. It is holding this piece of global mythology. It is a presence that this mask holds in it. And, like I said, when he walked onto the Tantive 4, he didn't need to say a word. Like, he just was commanding just by what you saw. So I would take that one over even the burned and melted Return to the Jedi mask.
Yeah, I agree. I agree in terms of, like, to me, Darth Vader growing up, he wasn't just a bad guy or a villain. He was a force of nature. Like, it was like trying to fight back a hurricane, particularly in Empire Strikes Back, when he's literally throwing all those objects at Luke. And that was kind of the first time you really saw that use of the Force, of manipulating objects around them, that he was on another level. That how could Luke defeat Vader? Because he was just pretty much all powerful. He was terrifying, particularly for a 5-year-old.
And we find out later on, he didn't just have the Force; he also had the Schwartz, which really special.
Another aspect of the Vader suit overall that I love is, through watching Revenge of the Sith today, we realized that it's also just symbolic of his dependence on the Emperor, and that his fall was just him being dependent on him and wanting to keep Padme alive, and him going into that suit is just showing his reliance on the Emperor as a person, and he's just in eternal servitude to him at that point.
Yeah, and you sort of watch that evolve or devolve over the things, and you're right, the mask and the breathing apparatus is just the final way that he has ultimate control over Vader. And then, watching today, we were watching again the original trilogy, and when I remember that moment when he's like, "Take off my mask," and I'm like, "This is it!" Like, and I'm like, "Oh, it's just a dude under there." I'm like, "That's not James Earl Jones. Wait a second."
But another piece on the Vader topic that's higher on my list is kind of that separation moment where the start of the separation between him and the Emperor, when his hand gets sliced off for the second time. I want that hand that it got sliced off of Vader's arm, holding the lightsaber and just like I feel like it's the start of that moment where he finally breaks free of the Emperor's grasp.
So I'm just picturing walking into your house, which is less creepy than walking to
Yeah.
Fred's house because he's got the giant Han Solo, but there's a severed hand holding a lightsaber just sitting,
Yep.
in the
Just sitting in a glass case,
sitting in
right next to the every single Jar Jar Binks memorabilia piece I could find.
Nice.
I'll actually remove it because one of my items was Luke's hand. Not the one that gets chopped off, the mechanical one that gets added on.
I thought about having Luke's hand there, but I'm like, it's just a little bit dark. It's a little bit dark.
We're now in the limbs section of the podcast, so I'd have to like the top half of Darth Maul while we're at it. Thank you.
All right, so I guess technically, I don't know whose was that.
That was
That was yours.
Yeah,
That was mine. All right, so Fred, we're back to you.
Okay. My next item, who wouldn't want to have a friend like Chewbacca? The most loyal person that will dedicate their life to you. As you know, my dog's name is Chewbacca. He is the person you could always rely on. And I think Chewbacca has one of the most unique, that's a redundant, a unique weapon in the Star Wars universe. So I would choose Chewbacca's bowcaster. It just always seemed super cool. It's more powerful than the other blasters that Han or the stormtroopers use. Even I love the moment in The Force Awakens when Han uses it for the first time. It's like, oh, I like this. It's a powerful weapon for a powerful being, and hats off to Chewbacca. He's the best. So I'll take his weapon, his bowcaster.
Yeah, I mean that's a great one because it's not just his weapon of choice. I mean, it really is part of what helps to define him, right? And I think it's this cool sort of marriage of technology and heritage. Like you can see it must have evolved from something much earlier. And I don't remember, Fred. I don't remember ever them making a bowcaster toy, like a bowcaster, because we had the black. This was before you had to have the orange caps. Like we had, my Han Solo was perfectly black. The Stormtrooper gun was perfectly black. I don't remember them ever making a Chewbacca one.
The action figure came with a tiny one, but no, not like a full size one. Not that I recall.
Yeah, I think this is good because it's super recognizable, but I think it's also very underappreciated. All right, Nicholas, you're next.
All right, this is a little bit more off topic, but I just love a gonk droid. Just give me the like painted trash can walking around, just on topic of creatures and miscellaneous things. I think that would be probably, if I could choose one droid to have, that's the one that I would want.
So I wonder, do we all have some sort of droid on our list?
I don't actually.
Oh,
do you have a droid on your list?
I have like one plus. Like I have one and one. I had one first. I'm like, this would be silly because nobody would know. Because at first I had the Death Star mouse droid, right?
I did have that and then crossed it out.
And I'm going to do my, like, like he's on there for seconds, but you know it and you love it. And as I was watching today, I'm like, that droid is such a nuisance because the stormtroopers who can't shoot for anything, they can hardly run. Like now they're trying to avoid this little like mouse thing that's running around. So I think I liked it because I think it offers a little bit of intentional or otherwise accidental humor in this very bleak place. Like we were joking today when, spoiler alert, the Death Star blew up. We're like, think of all the families. Think of all the people who are just working there, like cleaning up and like
janitors, like caterers, just like the family that's visiting their dad who's working as an officer. Like, bye.
Yeah. But I think it shows that even the smallest characters and I think we'll even probably talk about some of the smallest props can leave a lasting impression. I will, since we're just talking about droids, I did put R2-D2 on near the very end. Because I think, when you think about it, I think R2-D2 really is the heart of the entire saga. Like, a lot of things happen because of and but for R2-D2, right? From the Tente 4 to Jabba's palace, like he's always been there. And I think he's either one of the very few is he the only character who appears in every numbered Star Wars episode, right? Everything in the Skywalker saga.
C3PO.
I felt 3PO is also there.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I think when we first saw him, whether you watched him in 1977 or whatever, you instantly, there was something, we don't understand a word he's saying, but there's something instantly love about him. And again, too, Lucas sort of drew from Japanese influence. There's something called a Kagamusha, which is like this shadow warrior or body double. I think he embodies that because R2-D2 is always sort of like protecting other people from behind the scenes. He is able to emote with there's no change in the way he looks, but it's just he's able to emote from those little sort of bounces or the way he moves or the sounds that he makes. And I think for collectors, owning an original R2-D2 screen used dome or body, which I might be able to actually fit into, right? There was actually, there was somebody in there, might be one. And now, Fred, I don't know if you remember this, for a little while, I did own a somewhat version of it because I couldn't afford like a life-size R2-D2 when collectors started making them. So at one point, because Pepsi was doing the soda cans, Pepsi made a life-size R2-D2 ice cooler, and I bought it, and I had it shipped to my law office. So this huge box comes in. My secretary is like, what is in this huge, heavy thing? So clearly I was a very, very mature lawyer. In my office, I take this out, and there's this huge, and it looked just like R2-D2, like the dome came off, and you put ice in it, and you could put all your Pepsi cans in there. I mean, I very quickly, turned it around and resold it because I didn't know what I was going to do with it. But
so you think about buying things to save for your kids for the Phantom Menace and not the R2-D2 life-size cooler.
I have to look on eBay to see if those things even exist. But yeah, R2-D2, like you don't need to say a word to be a hero, and he is the little droid. Without R2-D2, like the galaxy does not get saved. So
true.
All right, is that making my turn? Your turn?
I think it's your turn.
I'm bouncing between what I put 1 and 2. I'm gonna say my second one next because I just don't want anybody else to take it. And I'm sure this is not going.
Wait. I found the R2-D2 cooler on eBay for the low cost of $1,800. So
oh my gosh, or you come on to like books for tuition this semester for you.
Or you can buy a used one for like.
Is it the Pepsi R2? Yeah, is it the? That's it. That's my guy.
Okay.
How cool would that be in the backyard?
Okay. Yes. Let's buy 12.
Or
you know what?
Or in the front foyer. How nice would that be? Walk in.
I'm thinking the dining room. Just keep it there. Crack open a cold.
All right. I'm going to get to this before one of you takes it, and I'm sure I would be shocked if this is the only one on the list. This is a more elegant weapon for a more civilized age, but I am getting very, very specific in what I want. I want Obi-Wan Kenobi's, not 1, not 2, I want his third lightsaber. It is elegant, it is minimalist, it is humble, just like Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan wielded 3 different lightsabers during his years as a Jedi. I want the third one with the blue blade. He always had a blue blade, which are associated with sort of the Jedi Guardians, right? They focus on the martial arts skills, the combat training, the physical defense. They are the protectors of the peace who take action only when diplomacy fails. And I think that signifies the courage and the loyalty and the honor that he has. The blue is the color of the knights, right? The knights who sort of represent hope in dark times and that balance between action and peace. And I think there's a lot of symbolism in that, in terms of his protection and self-sacrificing and service of others. So this was his third one after he became a Jedi Master. It was a little bit of a refined hilt that you saw it in Revenge of the Sith. He used it until his death aboard the Death Star. When, again, this too, Fred, I remember seeing this, and when he is sort of gives that look over to Luke, and he just very quietly sort of holds the lightsaber. Again, it's a very sort of Japanese style pose. He sort of holds the lightsaber up in front of him and allows him to be struck down. Like, what are you doing, man? Like, you could have taken this guy. The screen legacy of having this thing of something that he literally and figuratively held against the heart of the Jedi Order. And I like it too because it's simple. It's not loud or flashy. It's very elegant. It's relatively simple. It's carried and wielded like a samurai sword. And I think you can see a lot of that influence, that sort of Japanese influence on it. Sort of almost an extension of a katana. And even if you look at some of the way the Obi-Wan Kenobi action figures were designed, especially some of the later ones, that stance and that movement and the positioning was very reminiscent of Bushido, sort of that sort of a samurai type stance. And I think it's clean and it looks like it's worn at the hip like a samurai blade. And I think it represents what it means to be a Jedi. It's grace and patience over aggression, and it's duty over ego and wisdom over fear. And it's not something that you just display in my house. Like, it's something that you have to respect.
No, absolutely. The lightsaber, I tried to stay away from it as long as I could, but yeah, lightsabers you can't talk about Star Wars without talking about lightsabers. They're so integral. They're so, they're one of the first things anyone that snap hiss sound and the humming. On my list, I did have, sorry if you have it, Nick, Darth Maul's lightsaber, because I wanted to have something representing the prequels. And, that double-edged saber, that was something that, whoa, this is kicking it up a notch. This is something I haven't seen before. This is the first time you're really seeing a Sith Lord basically in his prime. And finding out what they really can do, what a fully trained Jedi and Sith were capable of.
And just the music that is, when
Duel of the
first
Fates.
time you heard Duel of the Fates, Fred, again, I remember being in my office. I'm sure clients were in the waiting room. It's fine. Just playing that over and over again, because it was just, not only was it the first time we had new Star Wars in decades, but it was such it was instantly iconic. And again, that we had never seen a blade like that, and certainly not wielded the way Ray Park, who is, beyond Jedi master, beyond a martial arts master, was able to wield that.
And just, I was going to obviously put that on my list, but that lightsaber, especially as the character was developed and he became sort of this antithesis to Obi-Wan, had so much more significance than just that initial fight with the Duel of Fates, which is obviously one of the best pieces of music to come out of Star Wars. But I'll move on to the other lightsaber I had on my list, more for comedic, was Mace Windu's lightsaber. Specifically because of the engraving.
It's a family-friendly show, just keep it G-rated.
The engraving of BMF, which you can probably add together.
Bad mama.
Beautiful mother.
Right.
Of fun.
And as the story goes, he, in order for him to accept the role, he sort of demanded from George Lucas, I want a purple lightsaber. And Lucas is like, there are no purple lightsabers. He's like, exactly, MFer. That's why I want one. And he wanted Sam Jackson bad enough that he got that very iconic purple saber.
The first green, blue, red lightsaber in the Star Wars seal that kind of just opened Pandora's box to the rainbow of colors that we have today.
Yes, I remember my son desperately wanting yellow. Was always his favorite color. The kid wanted a yellow lightsaber. I'm like, dude, they don't make yellow lightsabers. Like, I'm wrapping masking tape on lightsabers to try and change the color. And then obviously when Galaxy's Edge opened, then you could buy kyber crystals and that whole thing, and the the guards,
the Temple Guard.
The Temple Guard. You were able to get the Temple Guard saber in yellow. Like, that was your Star Wars dream come true.
After all the years of having to settle for the green and the blue, and I was like, oh, the yellow one, they finally made it happen in Galaxy's Edge.
Yeah, and there's also, you can go, especially we go to a lot of cons and Star Wars conventions and things like that. There are third-party company that make, laser swords of, you could sort of, there were hundreds of different hilts that you could make or put together and then choose the different types of blades and the sounds that they make and the colors. And some of them even I've seen, you can buy one and you could adjust the color on its own. So you can have one lightsaber and wield multiple colors. You don't have to worry about buying different kyber crystals with it. Fred, when we were kids, we had our own versions of lightsabers, right? So they were, do you remember the one that was basically a black flashlight that had an inflatable, it was like a balloon, like a plastic balloon that you inflated, like blowing into it. We would beat each other like senseless with them. When we finally broke those, we would take the Christmas wrapping paper tubes, beat each other with, we loved each other very much. We still do. But that's what we did in our basement, with that shag red carpet that we were playing Star Wars on. We wanted to just wield or make our own lightsabers. And it was whatever we could come up with, whatever they had, we would try. And if not, we just sort of made our own.
And speaking of the yellow saber, I remember the original 1977 or 78 action figure for Luke Skywalker had a yellow lightsaber that extended out of his hand. I don't know if it was a mistake, someone messed up, but that's what he had. And I always wondered if it was for that reason that at the end of Rise of Skywalker, Rey ignites a yellow lightsaber and kind of bring it back to that.
I never thought about that. Yeah, and we remember sort of they had this, it was a telescoping lightsaber. So there was literally like this little lever in their arm that you would extend the lightsaber out of. There's the double telescoping lightsaber. There's a single telescoping lightsaber. If you are a Star Wars collector, you know that there is different variations and iterations of it, some much more valuable than others. Fred, as long as we're talking about lightsabers, as long as we're talking about Luke Skywalker, I think we need to tell the story. Again, as kids, we were very fortunate. Our parents wanted to make sure nobody got left out. We were able to play with stuff. So I think I don't remember if I came home from school or came upstairs from the basement or something. And I walk into our room and it smells like something's burning. And I'm like, my God, the house is on fire. I'm just a kid. I don't know what to do. And it wasn't. Fred wanted to make sure that his Luke Skywalker was as authentic and screen accurate as possible. So what did you do?
I put his right hand against a light bulb until it melted off, so that he could. It was in the Bespin costume. It was the Bespin costume Luke, and I wanted him to be screen accurate.
And not only was his hand melted into form, but his whole right side of his body.
Yeah.
He looked like Anakin, when Obi-Wan had the high ground, he was sort of naked all on the side. Do you still have him? I remember
I
seeing
do.
him years later. Yeah.
Yeah. You found him in some box of stuff at Mom's house, and you gave it to me. And yes, he's on a bookshelf.
Yeah. When my mom passed and I went up to New Jersey, I found the trunk. There was a trunk that we used to have in a room, like a toy trunk. And it was this Pandora's box of things from my childhood. I didn't cry at all. It was fine. And there he was, there was Luke Skywalker burnt to a
melted Luke Skywalker.
He's one of one. He is one of one. So.
That figure's worth $10,000 now.
Yeah, after telling this story on the show, it definitely went up and down.
As we were talking about lightsabers and Obi-Wan and Jedi and stuff, the other thing I was thinking when I was watching today, I think we even mentioned this too, I don't think I wanted it anymore because there must have been so many. Obi-Wan Kenobi must have gone through 75 different cloaks because every scene he's dropping his cloak and just running off. What happens in between? Is he going to does he have is there a store? He's like, oh, you again, Kenobi.
He's got the cloak. He's got to cloak a guy at the Jedi Temple. That just kind of okay, here's
really? Another. I just made you a cloak.
Here's 10 for the road. Stop by if you need any more.
It's awesome because every time he drops it, something cool's about to happen. That's sort of the letting you know something cool's going to happen. But yeah, so and I'm sure you listening at home, you probably have a or multiple lightsabers on your list as well. I want to know which one is yours. All right, Fred, what's next on your list?
Okay, in the words of Tim Foster, go with me here.
Oh God,
this This is not an individual prop. It's more of a set piece, but within your parameters, it's something that could fit in my house. So I would want the booth and table from the cantina, where Luke, Obi-Wan, Han, and Chewie all meet together for the first time, and where later on Han does shoot first and kills Greedo. But just imagine hanging out with your friends at that little booth and thinking about what you look out at in the cantina. You know, as for all of the fantastical things in A New Hope, that cantina scene is for people that don't even know Star Wars. People know that cantina scene, that was where you really knew we are in another galaxy. This is going to go more than just humanoid figures. You have the Hammerhead and the Walrus Man and the Snaggletooth and the Wolf Man, and we had all those figures. But that whole atmosphere of the cantina was just such a special place, and I would love to be able to hang out with my friends in that booth.
Oh, that's a nice pull. I didn't even think of that. We were talking about the cantina scene today. Just sort of, you were probably getting bored about recounting like the first time we ever saw the cantina scene. It was so different than anything else we had ever seen before. And there's all these different iterations and variations on aliens that were inhabiting this place as if it was, this real thing. And it was so, and then we were like, and then I'm like, that's Snaggletooth. That's, trying to Hammerhead. That was all the different, because I remember we only knew the names from the action figures because we wanted to sort of populate them ourselves.
On that topic of the cantina, I would actually, one of the things on my list that was kind of higher up because I feel like it's a little bit more unique was I want the instruments. I want some of the instruments that were played, not just in that cantina scene, but just other ones as well. I'd also love Max Rebo with his little instrument, but
oh, that's cool.
Yeah, Max Rebo, who looks a lot like one of the characters from, if you remember from Epcot with, Michael Jackson,
Captain EO.
Yep. Some of he looks very similar to one of the characters from Captain EO. When you said table, I was like, oh, you're going to something I had very far down my list, but I think it's easy. Yeah. It's the Jajarak table, the hollow chest table, which again was one of the earliest glimpses into how the Star Wars galaxy and characters, how they live, right? Not just the fights, not just the things that they do, but sort of what happens, behind the scenes, right? We always sort of wonder, how come we never see characters just getting together and eating? Like Obi-Wan Kenobi has to eat at some point. I think it also, we saw it in A New Hope and then Force Awakens and Solo. It's been passed down like through generations. It's almost like this heirloom piece that gets passed down, and it's not just a gaming table. I think it's a piece of home on the fastest hunk of junk in the galaxy, where like our kitchen table, we all gather, and it's something that's easily displayed in could be easily displayed in our house. But Nicholas, my only advice to you is to let the Wookiee win. What's next on your list?
I'll kind of shift. I don't know if you guys have any creatures on your list, but this is kind of on that sort of train. So if you have anything, get it ready. But you said it just has to fit in your house. I would love either just like an individual piece or just the whole thing, the Rancor. Just to have like a piece of like that scene, which was like one of the defining parts of that movie for me. Just have any little part of that would be spectacular.
Fred, I remember you had the Rancor figure.
Sure.
It was this huge, because way back when, remember the Star Wars figures that they made? Again, George Lucas wanted to make sure that they were those very small figures. Originally toy manufacturers in the studios wanted them to make the big 12-inch action figures. It's like, no, I want to make little things so we could make these ships. But remember the playset? Like, remember the 3-story Death Star playset? Remember how big Rancor was? Like, we had this, like you're sort of referring to the basement with the red shag carpet, because it's true. But we were able to sort of make these huge play sets with not just the things that we bought from KB Toy and Hobby or Toys R Us, but with pillows and blankets and things like that we would make. And that's how we were able to create these stories. But things were sort of bigger and almost better back then.
Agreed. Yeah, that ranker, he was probably about a foot tall, and I actually remember because that prop does exist because I remember there was a show that aired on I think CBS or something where they were taking you behind the magic, and they showed them manipulating the original prop that it was filmed in stop motion, so it's out there somewhere.
All right. How many more do you have? I have a couple more on my lists.
My list is a lot longer than you think because I thought we were going to go like movie by movie. And since I have like 4 things for each.
That's
movie.
all right. That's good. I have one on my list that I think is obvious, so I'm going to save it for later. But I also tried to think about things that were like small but meaningful and important, and maybe I wouldn't have to fight or try and outbid you guys if you wanted these in your house or museum. So I want the lightsaber training remote. I want that little floating orb that zaps you when you're not paying attention to it, because I think in the Star Wars universe, it represents so much more. It's that bridge between instinct and discipline, between lightsaber and weapon. It is almost an extension of the Force. And I think it's the tool that Obi-Wan, my favorite character, uses not to sharpen. It's not about sharpening Luke's reflexes. It's about awakening his faith, right? Your eyes can deceive you. Don't trust him. That's the moment, right? That's the moment where Luke goes from the farm boy with a dream of, flying his little skyhopper to becoming a Jedi in training. And when he puts the blast shield over his eyes, that remote becomes this metaphorical test of belief. It's something that he can't see or touch or understand. And it's the first time Luke is finally able to let go and literally feel the Force. And I think this remote is the perfect physical metaphor for the invisible truth. Like, you can't see the Force, but you can trust it. Like, this is very much, there's a faith-based connection for me as well, but you don't have to rely on sensors or tech or even sight. It's just this connection that you have to it. And I think the prop itself is interesting because if you look really closely, there's not just sort of like one little laser cannon on it. There's all these little holes that you imagine lasers can fire out of any direction as it spins around, which I think is sort of mimicking almost as a metaphor for life being very unpredictable. And just from a purely like screen story point of view, it really is the first Force training moment that we see, right? We see it later on in Rise of Skywalker, but it's and you can't see the wires, you can't see, but it's weathered and it's mechanical and it looks like something that has been used, that Obi-Wan must have brought with him to use, that he's been using to train. And I think it's not just a cool collectible, but it is the moment that Luke takes that first important step and that lights up the spiritual side of the saga.
Well said. And as Obi-Wan says, it's when Luke takes his first step into a larger world. Yeah, that I think that was very well said. I got nothing else to add.
You got anything, Mongello?
Nothing specifically about the prop, but just about that scene, and you kind of see it. The one thing I love about it is that you see it later mirrored when he's going to shoot in the Death Star, and he's just like, I gotta have faith. I gotta I gotta put down the mask. I gotta take off the stupid tracker and just let the thing flow.
God, it's why Episode 4 is still the best of the Star Wars movies. I'm sorry, I will die on that hill. I'll take on Empire.
I go Empire.
I know it is. Listen, there's no losers in that debate, but I still
only one that thinks Episode 1 is the best. Actually, you know what?
Listen, if you want me to continue paying for college, you're going to stop that kind of funny talk. But no, listen, Nicholas, we're joking, but for some people, Episode 1 is their favorite. Episode 3 is their favorite. Episode 8 is their favorite, and that's okay. It's where you live in your Star Wars universe, right? It might be Andor, it might be the Acolyte, it might be, Skeleton Crew. It's finding your entry point into Star Wars. And I think that's, the beauty. Not every Star Wars film or Disney Plus show resonates with everybody, and I don't think it's supposed to. I think it's supposed to open up doors for people like Luke to take your first step into this larger Star Wars world. So, Fred, what else you got?
You mentioned it previously, but next one, I'm going back, way back, all the way to the beginning. That even right after the crawl, even before you see the Star Destroyer, you see the Tantive 4, Leia's blockade run. That's the first ship you see on screen in a Star Wars movie. As Indiana Jones would say, it belongs in a museum. It is iconic. It's culturally significant as the first ship you are seeing in the Star Wars universe. And trivia question: how many engines does the ship have?
1, 2, 3. Wait, it's got 4, 4, 8, 11.
Very good.
Fred, let me, Nicholas, whatever your name is, let me explain something to you. My brother and I watch Star Wars a lot. We can tell, I think the statute of limitations has expired by this point. Fred, do you remember going with our dad to Route 22, Crazy Eddie's? His prices are insane. If you know, you know. We went up there to buy like a radar detector. I don't know. He went there to go buy something. And the guy goes over to our dad. He goes, hey man, your kids like Star Wars? And Dad's like, yeah, sure he does. He goes, come with me. So, Fred, were you with me?
I don't think so. I think it was a surprise when you guys came home.
Yeah, so there was like this room, like there was like the regular floor. Then was like you stepped up into this room where they sold like VCRs or radar detectors. My dad goes, wait here, don't move. So this is 1980, so I was maybe like 12. I was like, don't move. My dad disappears with this guy. He comes back later. He grabs him by the arm. He's like, all right, let's go. And I'm like, Dad, but I thought we were going to get it. He's like, no, come on, we're going. And we're walking out, and he's got this like crumpled up, like brown paper bag. And I'm like, what sort of deals is my dad doing at freaking Crazy Eddie's? We get into the car, and he opens up this crumpled up bag, and I have no idea what's going to be in the bag at this point. And it's 2 VHS tapes. And they were Dad, listen, don't think bad of my dad. He did it for his kids. But they were not the most authorized copies of Star Wars and Empire Strikes Back, which was still in the theaters. So, Fred, how many times did we sit in our dad's den on that red sort of oriental rug, sitting on the floor and it probably was a 22-inch TV, watching these movies over and over? We literally could recite the movies without the movies being on. Like we could perform them if we wanted to for our parents because we watched people. I mean, we had. I don't know
how we didn't wear out those tapes.
Yeah,
they were practically on an endless loop. And to defend Dad, like remember but you couldn't. There was no commercially available even VHS version of Star Wars. I think it's like 87 or 88. Like it was a long time that Lucas held out, so the only way you could see them was in the theater or at ABC.
Were they just recorded? Like, was a guy in there with like a camcorder?
I don't think it was like Kramer and Seinfeld, like bootlegging. Like I don't know how they made the copy of it. I mean, it wasn't perfect. It wasn't like 4K Dolby. But it was perfect enough that we could watch it. And I think, Fred, we got a lot of probably fake friends at that time who they just wanted to come over and watch
absolutely
Star Wars and have leftover meatballs from our grandmother's house the night before. I tell the story in the show all the time about how like we go over like mom's house and you're not hungry? Here, have 6 pounds of pasta. And we would come home with like 87 meatballs for lunches the next week. So
they would be eaten.
They would be eaten. All right, so I love that. We just watched New Hope today. Trivia question. What is the very first spoken line in Star Wars?
We're doomed.
Nope.
No?
Just get out.
Is it like the speaker saying alert or something?
No, it's by C-3PO.
It's wow.
No. Did you hear that? His first line is, did you hear that?
I thought it was okay.
Very first line ever spoken in a Star Wars movie.
Full of plentiful knowledge
Listen,
in that big brain of yours.
This is what you get.
Lawyer, everybody, doctorate of law, going towards
lots,
that.
lots of useless knowledge. So, all right. Who's next?
You.
Nick.
Oh,
No, Nick. So
Oh, I'm not ready. You go first.
I thought you had 600 things. On
I
the
have
list.
600 things on the, but like they've been crossed off.
Yeah, but I only have a
Everyone's
couple.
been
All right. I'll go back to the beginning again because I mentioned what my favorite, toy collectible memory that I have still sitting there, which is the Han Solo blaster. I want the blaster. I want the DL-44. It is fast. It is powerful. It is distinctly Han Solo. It is scruffy looking. It is reliable. It is unrefined, just like him. And like you said, Fred, in the cantina scene, he does shoot first. We're saying it here. I also love, there was so much when they were making the original Star Wars that was scrapped together. Like a lot of the things that you see may or may not have been ice cream machines. Like Cam Tono, I'm looking at you, but this was built from an old Mauser C96 and sort of other parts that were scrapped together on it. And I think I don't love it because of the gun, because of the weapon itself. I think I love it because it's a symbol of who Han is. It's very quick. It's maybe a little morally gray. Like it's the coolest looking gun of all the guns there. And I think because Star Wars and what Lucas wanted Star Wars to be was this Western in space, it is that perfect extension of the blending of the genres from Western to sci-fi. And I just like the fact that, like the original, and I think it's why I like A New Hope so much more than anything else, is it's not polished, it's gritty, it's rugged, it's worn, it's been modified. Like it's not standard issue. Like neither is Han, and like Han doesn't want to be a hero, but the way that he carries and the way that he uses that blaster says otherwise. And I just think it's a lot of what it matter. I think it's a lot of what matters about. I think it tells us everything about who Han is. It's fast. It's dangerous. He doesn't play by the rules, and I think it's very symbolic of a lot of the things that Han represents as well. It might not be elegant as a blaster, but it's very personal. It's very practical, and I think it's a very human weapon for the person who is wielding it. And I'd like to put the real one next to my toy one. Oh, I see what it looks like as the centerpiece of my museum.
So that's your magnum opus. That's going to be like everything surrounds.
Maybe because if I've got the original and I've got the toy from my childhood, it connects not just the prop from the movie, but it connects like the reason why we love Star Wars is because we all have some sort of like subjective memory that's associated with it. You ask anybody who is a quote unquote Star Wars fan, they've got that thing, they've got that moment, they've got that thing that made them feel something different that they had never done before. And I think that's what those two just sort of pointing at each other would represent.
Yeah, I think that's great. Han, obviously, I mentioned my dog is Chewbacca. My cat is Han Solo. He just like him. He's usually gruff, but occasionally lovable. There's the stories of the part originally being offered to Christopher Walken or Al Pacino, but Harrison Ford just imbued such humanity in that character of keeping him gruff, keeping him apart from Luke and Leia and Obi-Wan in terms of that he was the quote unquote the normal one, but also that he would allow himself every now and then you could peek behind the curtain that he would open his heart to them just a little bit here and there throughout the movies. He is very much the heart, particularly of that first movie.
Yeah, it's a scoundrel's weapon for a more sarcastic age. What else you got?
All right, I'll kind of shift back to the ship talk from before. You talked about the original ship from the start of the movie.
Nicholas, this has to fit inside your house, not in the backyard.
I actually wanted to do the a full size AT-AT walker. I just like that. I'd actually like that as my car just to drive around, but no. The model of the AT-AT walker, specifically when one of the ones that had just been like already tumbled by the snow speeders, that scene just like is ingrained in my head, that like the powdery white snow as these ships are flying through and taking down these dinosaur looking like tanks. It's so ingrained in my mind, and I think is one of the defining moments of that movie. So I think, and we see the added influence so much more in movies beyond just Star Wars and beyond just episode 5.
Are you talking about Civil War?
What?
Remember that really old movie?
With the walking thingies? Yes, I'd like a walking thingy, one of the little models they use for stop motion in my house.
That's great. I like that.
Yeah.
Because you can see, and when it falls and the way that it sort of falls forward, and it almost looks like there's a not a humanity to it, but there's almost an organic sense to it, like it's a living thing, the way it sort of falls forward and collapses and dies. And again, the simplicity of not using technology to take him down, but shooting out the hook from the back of the snow speeder.
Just tying up his little legs and letting him tumble down. In an ideal world, I'd love like a whole piece of the set with like the footsteps behind him and just like that whole little bit set piece with like the crash ships and just like other troopers
right. Did they
behind it, like
preserve that with the snow and looking just like that? Probably not.
No.
But yeah, and Fred, we had that. You had the AT-AT.
Oh yeah.
Panel came off the side. You shoved stormtroopers into the side of it. And wasn't there the cable? Wasn't there the tow cable that
I think that was
Luke?
There was a separate Luke figure that had the cable to shoot up. Those the AT-AT walkers are such a fantastic piece of imagination by Lucas. I also remember like even John Williams' score when the AT-AT walkers are moving, you're almost not sure if it's the sound of the score or the sound of the movement of the machine. It just integrated beautifully, and the AT-AT walkers, like Vader, I've mentioned, are terrifying. They are intimidating, and for the rebels, like you said, to ragtag guerrilla warfare and of just tripping them up. It's just brilliant storytelling.
Is it back to me?
I believe so.
I'll add one more little thing. Another thing that could fit in my house has to do with the AT-AT walker is the set that they use to just kind of like show those troopers inside of the AT-AT walker. I think would be another really interesting piece to have, just because like it's gotta be so crammed in there, but they have just all those little parts of it, and being able to see through the eyes of the AT-AT like as they're aiming at something. I think that would be another cool piece.
Here's a question I always had though: is how do they get them down from the Star Destroyer? Like, are they shipped in pieces and then they had to build them, or are they just launched full formed?
And they end up on Endor too. Like there's not just AT-ST walkers. And you can debate AT-AT, AT-AT, whatever. But you're right. How do they sort of get them down there?
They just, all of them had little like rocket propellers, and they're like, okay, these 4 legs go over here, this body goes over there, and then we'll just like assemble it like Lego pieces.
Is it like an IKEA thing?
So Fred, we were watching today, and I was pausing and rewinding when the AT-ATs are approaching, and I said, and there's someone who is in there who's taking the orders from the command ship, and I said, Nicholas, where else have you seen this actor before? And he looks at me like, hey man, I'm just trying to watch the movie. Would you just move on, Mongello? Fred, where have you seen that actor before who was leading the AT-AT walkers against the rebel base?
I know this. I can't. At first, I thought you were talking about Cliff Clavin is one of the rebels. But can you give me a hint?
Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. Julian Glover.
It's the guy who chooses poorly.
He chose poorly and pays for it. Yeah, but he was the bad guy in Indiana Jones in the Last Crusade. Sorry, I don't get out of the house very much.
Yeah, we could tell.
People listening are like, how did he ever date? Who ever dated this guy? I am wildly shocked that neither of you have even referred to this character at all. Because from the moment he stepped foot on screen, he didn't need any line. Well, he had one little line, but he didn't really need any lines to become a legend. He just needed the armor, baby. I'm talking about one Boba Fett. I don't know if I want the helmet, but you know what? Give me all of it. Give me the whole thing. Because there was myth and mystery about this character from the very beginning. And it's not just armor, it's identity and it's legacy. And it was something that we had never seen anything like before. Now we know more about who and what the Mandalorians are and the code and the resilience and the survivor. And the fact that the helmet hid his entire face, like we did not know what or who was behind it. And I want it just the way it was on screen. I want every dent, every scratch, because every one of those is a story and a victory. I mean, obviously we've come to love the character for so many reasons, but I loved, again, this almost sort of Ronin-like-esque. So Ronin is like a samurai with no master. He's a man who has like no allegiance to anybody. He sort of had his own code. He was this bounty hunter, and he was so instantly popular. How popular was he? He was so instantly popular that they had to create an action figure for him that you had to mail away for. You couldn't even buy him in the stores. We all know that, maybe you don't, the stories of the original Boba Fett action figures had these rocket firing backpacks that there's debate whether they were just prototypes, whether any were actually shipped out. Then they had this little like J hook to fire the rockets. And then kids, where were your parents? They're like firing them into their faces. They're like swallowing them. So all of a sudden you couldn't fire the rockets anymore. It was a little red rocket in the back. You couldn't fire the rocket. So finding a rocket firing Boba Fett is the holy grail of action figures for a lot of collectors. And I think that just continues to add into the mystery and the mythos of who and what Boba Fett was. And then, I mean, so instantly beloved that he ends up getting his own show.
You too can have a rocket firing Boba Fett for the low price of $1.34 million.
And there you go.
And to show that even the worst things can have something good come out of them, Boba Fett actually first appears in the Star Wars Holiday Special.
We should just do a show about and B. Arthur's like 45-minute like.
No one picked any props for the holidays from the holiday special.
It's interesting. It's fascinating.
I'd like a Life Day cloak, please. I'd like actually a Chewbacca's whole family just to be the centerpiece of my collection.
I want the hologram thing that the grandfather's using.
Yeah, the Star Wars Holiday Press Special. There was a lot of interesting things when they're like, "Hey, we've got something here. We should start capitalizing on this." Some of the Saturday morning cartoons and stuff that were made, not always the best work. So, all right, Fred, it's back to you.
It is. Okay. I wanted to have at least something representative of the Disney era of Star Wars. So I am going to go with, you had mentioned before you wanted a Yoda puppet. I want a Grogu, or as he will always be to me, Baby Yoda. I remember first watching The Mandalorian. I think I was on episode 2, and Becky, my fiance, was walking by and she sees Grogu on screen. She's like, "What is that?" And I was like, "Oh, it's the new Star Wars show." And she's like, "Okay, rewind back to the first episode. I got to see where this guy comes from." Like, I think that character introduced or brought in a whole another level of fandom for people that weren't previously fans, or maybe had minor fandom. And it certainly, I'm sure it definitely went to getting more people to subscribe to Disney Plus. I remember hearing stories about how they were so secretive about having him that they didn't even have any merchandise, that people were like, "I want a Baby Yoda," and they didn't have it because they wouldn't publicly release any images. So I think that I'm looking forward to Favreau's movie of The Mandalorian and Grogu. And I think he has created, even though he's not even said a word, and even though he is clearly just a puppet on screen, you believe, you buy in to that character, and why the Mandalorian would change his whole ethos to defend that character and become its father figure, because how can you not love Baby Yoda?
Yeah, to your point, you're right. It changed. I mean, it was a sort of a seminal moment in Star Wars history because it either rekindled a love of Star Wars for people who maybe had sort of, it had fallen by the wayside a little bit for one reason or other. It introduced a whole new generation of people to Star Wars. And from a merchandising perspective, you're right. The same way that Star Wars was ill prepared in 1977 for the clamoring for merchandise because it had never, Nicholas and I were talking about this earlier. I said, we can debate this now, later. I said, is Star Wars possibly the most important movie ever made? Let me explain. Wait, because it wasn't just about introducing this sort of type of science fiction storytelling that was not sort of a Flash Gordon, Buck Rogers, weird, 70s stuff, early 70s type of sci-fi. But what it meant in terms of, to quote Mel Brooks, merchandising, it did. Like it changed the merchandising of movies in the most profound way. Like, Nicholas, you just didn't have action figures and toys for movies the same way that you did for this. And it has ushered in a complete change in the way we as consumers and fans not just want things, but expect things from the movies, and we want them right away. When Mandalorian came out, you're right. People were like, I can't get merch. And I know somebody who is a licensee who, you're right, had to wait, and then they could not keep it in stock. It didn't matter what Baby Yoda was on, because we didn't know his name. It didn't matter what Baby Yoda was on. People just wanted it. I remember being in the Disney store because I went to go see it. It's Rock'em Socks. It's my buddy Rob from Rock'em Socks. And he's like, hey man, can you go down there and see what's going on? And I went down, and when they brought him out, it was like Cabbage Patch Kids. Like people just grabbing them like they were crazy. And I'm like, I have not seen this since Cabbage Patch Kids. Or, Fred, when we would go as kids to go to Toys R Us on Route 22 or KB Toy and Hobby at Woodbridge Center Mall to go get Star Wars toys, that same way, sort of just kids pulling things off the shelf.
Yep.
It just ushered in a whole Star Wars as a whole. Just I don't know if I would go as far and say it's the most impactful film in terms of looking at every aspect, but in terms of merchandising and just revenue generation for films and marketing, I would say that it is one of, if not the most impactful films.
What else is on? I mean, we can debate this. What else is? Fred, you are the movie. Fred, just for context, when I say that my brother is the movie guy who has documented before, he had a computer, was documenting movies that you watched. How many movies have you documented that you've watched and reviewed by hand?
8,684.
Can somebody do the math? 8,684. You figure 2 hours per movie. You talking about me not leaving the house?
And that's not counting repeat. That's not counting the 200 times I've seen Star Wars. That just counts as one.
That's 6,723 days. Wait, and then that's 18.42 years.
Well, there you go. So my brother's been in prison. My brother's been in prison for 20.
That actually sounds. That sounds.
No,
really
that doesn't
wrong.
sound wrong. That doesn't sound right. 8,600 movies. Whatever. You figured out.
It's because I added an extra zero.
Somebody figured out.
Okay,
but you are the most well-versed movie person. When I say something and I haven't sort of thought this out, it was very much an off the cuff, but I was thinking about not just from a filmmaking perspective, from a merchandising perspective, from a licensing perspective, from all these different things. What else, in addition to or other than Star Wars, do you think, Fred, rises to the list of most important, impactful films?
In terms of not just for films, but the world at large. I agree with you. I think Star Wars is the most important. Jaws is often said to be the first summer blockbuster movie, but then Star Wars would be the next, and Jaws did not have that merchandising influence and all of the different offshoots that, you know, people didn't clamor for, you know, what's Chief Brody's backstory, but everyone wanted to know, where did Obi-Wan come from, who was Darth Vader. Like there is definitely a pre and post Star Wars for any movie that's made after that, and culturally, any people that have not seen Star Wars, or I have friends that, like, you know, say, oh yeah, I watched them when they came out, but I wasn't a fan. He could still name 10 characters that you can't, like, the word Ewok is never said in Return of the Jedi, but everyone knows what an Ewok is.
Why are you looking at me like that? Why?
We all know what you have in your closet. Come on now.
I would say it is the most influential movie, not just from a movie perspective, but how it affected everything, entertainment and merchandising. 100%.
Zeitgeist of culture, not just in America, but everybody on the planet knows what Star Wars is.
I have the right statistics now. It's actually 723 days and about 1.98 years.
Okay.
Checks out.
And Fred's totally okay with that. So, and what is it? You've seen every picture that's won an Academy Award. What is it? Except for like The Patriot?
There's a little over 3,500, and it's not just ones that won, including the ones that were nominated. I've seen all but 22, and most of those are between 1927 and 1930 that they're just lost films.
Just gonna let that just sit right there.
If you need a movie guy,
Fred is your guy. So, all right. Anything, you guys have anything else on your list? Quick sort of go through any additional ones or honorable mentions on your list, Fred and Nick.
Honorable mentions. I'll mention two blasters. One of them was going to be the Boba Fett blaster, just because the mystique and the aura that the character had. And then from the more modern Star Wars era, I loved the like ginormous disintegrating sniper rifle that the Mandalorian had in that first season. That would probably be on there as well. And then in terms of ships, I would love a piece or to have the Super Star Destroyer, just because that's another thing that I feel like had a lot of mystique and aura to it that we just never learned a lot about during the movie. But from there,
but that Super Star Destroyer, like that one ship hits it and it just tanks. It literally just sinks.
Yeah,
like the Titanic.
It's more just cool. This is like the largest like floating thing. Some stuff from, I love Clone Troopers. Get me some stuff from those guys. But other than that, and a Tauntaun.
Nice.
Fred, anything for you?
We covered briefly a lot of the only other main one I had was a speeder bike from Return of the Jedi. I remember those. It felt like you were in a video game, and I wanted to be in that video game when I first saw those scenes of them racing through the forest on those speeder bikes.
I had a couple other things on my list, but I'm like, there's nothing that I would really put on here. But then I was like, wait, there is one thing, and then maybe by extension, it would be another. And if I had to choose between the two, I'm going to say the thing that I would want more first. Fred, I'm almost, and I don't know if this is sort of outside the bounds of what we're talking about, but when we talk about Star Wars, the film, and all the different aspects to it, and some of the amazing props that we've talked about today, Star Wars isn't Star Wars without one man, and that man's name is John Williams. Give me original handwritten sheet music signed by John Williams. That is the centerpiece. I think I would take that. Now, my brother, too, is also a musician. He's a pianist. I think I would take that maybe over, I don't know, like if I had George Lucas's original Journal of the Wills handwritten yellow pad, like notes for Star Wars, that and or John Williams' original handwritten sheet music, that would be the centerpiece of my collection.
100%
thinking right there.
Yeah, I like it. Yeah, absolutely. I am to me, John Williams, I've said before, is the greatest musician of the 20th century of any genre.
Yeah.
He creates without lyrics. He creates emotion and any type of emotion. And I think Lucas has even said you could watch Star Wars with no dialogue, but just the music, and you would understand 90% of the story.
Yeah, and if you haven't seen the John Williams documentary on Disney Plus, grab some tissues and sit down, and you are in for a treat. It is masterful and done. And you're right, Fred. I agree with you in terms of your assessment of him as not just a composer and a conductor, but as a musician and his influence. Like, we don't want anybody to pass, but man, like John Williams, I know, and we went to Star Wars Celebration in Anaheim 2 years ago, and as a surprise, they had John Williams come out and conduct a few
pieces.
It was, there's something about live music, and some people say, well, why do you need to see somebody conduct? I don't know what it was, man, but being in that room with that man and watching him conduct, I feel like I was given a gift. We're talking about gifts that we would have in our museum. I feel like we were given like that gift, which is not a tangible thing, but is a core Star Wars memory for me.
It's like truly hearing those iconic, like the Imperial March live in person, just surrounded by everyone who's feeling the exact same way as you about the music and just about the person that was there. It was like truly a magical experience. It's the best way to describe it. It was magical. It was awe-inspiring. And to be able to have that opportunity within like these last few years, just...
Yeah, it took our breath away.
It truly did.
Took our breath away.
Tears just like poured down.
Anything else? Any other things that you want to add? Anything that you want to include in your collection? Otherwise, that is going to wrap up our trip through the ultimate Star Wars movie prop collections, or at least the ones that we wish that we had. Because these pieces are not... They're not toys, they're not props, they're not collectibles, they are memories. These are the sights and the sounds and the symbols that brought us to a galaxy far, far away and never let go. And now I want to hear from you, because if you're like me and you're right like us, you are nerding out on your basement carpet with your old action figures and ships and cereal box dioramas. What is the one item from a Star Wars movie or Disney Plus show that you want to add to your dream collection? Money is obviously no object here. Let me know by joining the community and conversation over in the WDW Radio Clubhouse on Facebook at www.radio.com/clubhouse. Better yet, be part of the show. Call the voicemail. I will play it on the air. 407-900-9391. That's 407-900-WDW1. Share your pick and then share your story. And let me know if you like this format, too. Let me know if you like this idea, because we can do it for Disney movies. We could do it for Marvel movies. We could do it for Spaceballs. So, Nicholas, thank you again for joining me. Fred, it took us 20 years. Hopefully it won't take 20 more years. But more importantly, thank you for, like, the reason why these memories mean so much to me is not because about the things. It's not about, Nicholas, I tell you this all the time, it's not about the stuff. It's the people that you all want to, it's the people that you get to experience it with. So whether it's going to, buy toys with you, Nicholas, or the lightsaber experience, or Fred, like just growing up with this being such an important part of our lives and how much it meant to our dad. Like, thank you not just for sharing this with me today, but thank you for helping to create such important core memories for me as well.
Love you, man.
Yeah. And I think every true Star Wars fan's like ideal museum of their props is not the things from the movies itself, it's the things that they created memories with. And it's the toys, it's the blaster you played with, it's the lightsaber you built, it's what you connected with.
All right, let's go to Galaxy's Edge, man. Let's go. Like, all right, fix. Like, I need, like right now. Like,
lightsabers on me.
Oh, wait, I heard.
Yeah.
Time for our Walt Disney World Trivia Question of the Week, where you can test your knowledge of the magic, memories, and hidden treasures of Disney. And if you think you know the answer, you can enter for a chance to win a Disney Prize package. And this week's trivia contest is once again brought to you by you, the most important part of WDW Radio, because by joining the WDW Radio Nation, you're not only helping to support the show, but you're becoming part of the magic that makes it all possible. And for as little as $1 per month, you unlock exclusive perks like scavenger hunts, group calls, a private community, surprise care packages, and more. And even better, your support helps to power our Dream Team project, which has raised more than $500,000 to grant Make-A-Wish trips to children with life-threatening illnesses. Be part of something bigger, be part of the magic, learn more, and join the WW Radio Nation over at www.radio.com/support. And I want to thank some new and longtime members, including Ashley Cook, Christine Z, Kyle Bollmeyer, Kimberly Turner, S. Friedman, and Rachel. I truly love and appreciate you, and I love being able to give back to you each and every month. Now, before we get to this week's question, let's go back, review last week's, and select our winner. So last week we were also talking about Star Wars in the Disney parks with content that I recorded at Star Wars Celebration in Japan. And so your question, of course, had to be Star Wars related, and it was to tell me, in Oga's Cantina in Galaxy's Edge, what is the name of the droid that is the DJ providing the music? Thanks to all of you who answered, got this one correct. Whether you said it was DJ R3X or DJ Rex, I accepted either one because DJ R3X or Rex was the original rookie pilot on Star Tours back in 1987, voiced by the late Paul Reubens, Pee Wee Herman, and after some less than smooth flights, he was retired, later reprogrammed to become the DJ at Oga's Cantina in Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, still voiced by Paul Reubens, but now he's spinning beats for people at Oga's Cantina, still lovable, still a little bit nervous, and if you listen very closely, you might even hear him referencing some of his early Star Tours days. Anyway, I took all the correct entries, randomly selected one. Last week, you were playing for a WWO keychain, stickers, pin, and a mystery prize that I brought back to you from Star Wars Celebration in Japan, exclusive to that event. And last week's winner, randomly selected, is Nicholas Acevedo. So Nicholas, congratulations. Your prize package is already packed up and is going out to you tomorrow. And if you played last week and didn't win, that's okay, because here's your next chance to enter in this week's Walt Disney World Trivia Challenge. So Mother's Day is this Sunday, May 11th, the day that this contest is going to be due. You're welcome for the reminder in case you forgot. So to all moms, moms-to-be, aunt, and anyone and everyone who is or acts like a mom to others, happy Mother's Day. So let's focus on moms this week, although we should focus on moms every single day, but I digress. But in terms of this week's trivia contest, tell me, what is the name of the mom in Walt Disney's Carousel of Progress at Walt Disney World's Magic Kingdom? What is the mom's name? You have until Sunday, May 11th at 11:59 p.m. Eastern to go to www.radio.com, click on this week's podcast, use the form there. Again, this week you're going to play for the keychain, the stickers, the pin, and you know what? Because I brought back extras, I will throw in another mystery prize from Star Wars Celebration as we continue to celebrate Revenge of the 5th and Return of the 6th. So good luck, have fun, and may the Force be with you. Thank you so very much for listening and being part of the WW Radio community and, more importantly, family. And I hope that's how you felt this week and every week as you listen to the show, because I am so grateful to you and for you and your time and your support. Remember, you are not a fan, but you are a friend. A couple of quick time-sensitive reminders. Next week, starting on Monday, May 12th, I will be in Disneyland covering the 70th anniversary from Monday through Thursday. On Thursday morning, I leave from there, head right to Japan for our WDW Radio Group Adventures by Disney, and I will be sharing a lot from both events and locations. So please make sure you follow and turn on notifications, primarily over on Instagram. I'll be sharing a lot, especially on my stories. I am at Lou Mangello, both on Instagram, Facebook, as well as on LinkedIn. And speaking of timeliness and time sensitivity, the super early bird pricing for my Momentum Weekend Workshop in Walt Disney World this October 16th through the 20th, you can now save $200. It's already more than halfway sold out. This is the lowest ticket prices are going to be for this one-room, 50-person, hands-on strategy workshop to help you start, grow, and monetize your business. You can learn more and get your tickets over at LouMangello.com/momentum. And if you want to bring a little bit of Disney magic to your business, brand, or event, I share Disney-inspired lessons on customer experience, innovation, service, leadership, and storytelling to businesses, schools, teams, and events. So whether you're looking to enhance customer loyalty, spark creativity, or lead like Walt, I would love to help. And again, you can learn more or book me to speak over at LouMangello.com. And in addition to coming to be part of the community and conversation over in the Clubhouse over on Facebook at www.com/clubhouse, please join me this and every Wednesday night at 7:30 p.m. Eastern for WWE Live, where I go live on Facebook and YouTube, where you can be part of the conversation, whether I am broadcasting from the home office or maybe this week out in the parks. I have a feeling like I might want to head out over to Galaxy's Edge after all of this Star Wars talk. And when you are ready to book your next vacation adventure, for more than 18 years, I have trusted, used, and recommended Mousefan Travel to help you plan stress-free, unforgettable vacations because their expert, personalized service ensures every single detail is handled so you can focus on making magical memories. Best of all, their services are completely free no matter where you're going. To get a free no-obligation quote, head on over to mousefantravel.com. And if you like what you hear, and I hope that you do, please help spread the word, share the show, and tell a friend. And always remember to be kind, choose the good, have an amazing day, and even better tomorrow. So until next time, stay hungry.